This is Gaspé, with rugged, unspoiled coastline, shores on which a French explorer mirrored others in a dangerous game of conquest, one ignited by a church in a distant land.
With religious zeal, European explorers were landing on beaches just like this one all around the world, on a crusade for land, this land.
From John Cabot to Christopher Columbus and Pedro Cabral, Europeans were taking to the seas in ever greater numbers. But this story doesn't end here. It was the early morning, and a string of bad luck had a French carrack heaving through a ship-killing storm. At its helm was none other than Jacques Cartier.
As the fog lifted, Jacques Cartier hoped that he had found his safe harbor, this bay.
As if by fate, the storm pushed Jacques Cartier's ship into a bay unknown to Europeans. Having entered this remote inlet, he assessed his surroundings, looking for a home to wait out the storm.
As Cartier assessed his surroundings from the cove right over there, little did he know, 200 St. Lawrence Iroquois were watching him from this beach, right here.
These were a fierce people led by the legendary Chief Donnacona. And they had traveled a great distance to reach these fishing grounds, only to find their hunt suddenly interrupted. Having lowered his anchor into the inky waters, Cartier spied an opportunity. They would build a trade relationship with the Iroquois. Before long, it was clear that this bay was exceptional in more ways than one. Besides a protected anchorage, it also acted as an ample fishing ground, one that would be most useful to the French.
So one day before leaving, on July 24th, 1534, Jacques Cartier and his men would make quite the statement, erecting a 30-foot wooden cross bedecked in fleur-de-lis and a sign reading, Vive le Roi de France, right here.
The St. Lawrence Iroquois are said to have looked on with deep concern, protesting the symbol now lording over them and the land. But Cartier was quick to come up with justifications, saying that this was merely a landmark, a guidance marker to help other ships into the harbor.
So as Jacques Cartier and his crew left this bay, they left behind an important question. What did this cross really mean?
Pope Nicholas V had been on a roll, making way for the Portuguese slave trade in West Africa, and now a new papal bull, Romanus Pontifex, giving the power to the Catholic nations of Europe to seize lands and resources inhabited by non-Christians, enslaving those inhabitants in the process.
So, to get this straight, this decree was saying that indigenous people, because they were not Christian, were not human.
This papal bull, making up a part of the framework for the Doctrine of Discovery, justified Europeans grabbing indigenous lands, claiming ownership and sovereignty, because they had so-called discovered them.
According to the Doctrine of Discovery, all of this land was empty.
The race was on. Crosses sprang up across the Americas, from Alonso de Ojeda, Jacques Cartier, Hernando de Soto, Pedro Menendez Aviles, and Samuel de Champlain, with more known and likely unknown. these crosses a powerful statement of sovereignty granted by God, a concept that would become the inspiration for manifest destiny.
So much for this just being a cross. It's clear that it had a greater symbolic meaning than just a navigational marker, that it was a physical manifestation of the Doctrine of Discovery, and it was planted here in Gaspé, Quebec.
Today, the Doctrine of Discovery continues to be a dominant legal concept, impacting Indigenous peoples across Canada, only recently being renounced by the Vatican. So, Jacques Cartier sealed himself as the copycat conqueror by planting that cross, setting in motion a chain of events that would endure for centuries.